You were in Colombia with Griselda in 2012?
Yeah, I was there. I buried her.
What happened to her? Why was she murdered? Who did it and why?
Griselda Blanco, a flamboyant woman nicknamed La Madrina, or Godmother.
A Colombian drug baroness.
A cocaine queenpin of sorts.
I would characterize her as the epitome of the cocaine cowboys.
Más conocida como la reina de la cocaína.
Griselda Blanco has been charged with 3 murders.
Griselda Blanco.
Griselda Blanco.
For the last 20 years, I've watched other people tell the story of my mother and our family. Now it's my turn to tell the real story.
This is the Real Griselda epilogue. I'm Billy Corben here with Michael Corleone Blanco, author of My Mother, the Godmother, now available at mymotherthegodmother.com. We are now also joined by Junior Blanco, who I'm going to let Michael introduce. So, because I know there's some family tree business, so we got to get straight.
This is my dear cousin, my mother's favorite grandnephew, a pillar of the family, you know, and a person that was there for my mother, not only when she was incarcerated, that we would visit her a lot here when she was in Florida. He was younger, but we'd spend our vacations together. And I guess Junior really helped her get through her later years when she lived in Colombia. And sorry to say it, but he also buried my mother. He was there when you know, the funeral and everything. She would always... She loved Junior. I guess you reminded her a lot of your grandfather, which was my tío Luis. My mother's favorite brother that was assassinated in his mechanic shop, a complete innocent man. He was a mechanic, a 9-to-5er. He never saw drugs, did drugs in his life. He was assassinated by Rafico. This young man is my primo Arbe's son. So that would make him my mother's grandnephew. But he was like a son to her because in her later years, Junior was always around my mother.
What are some of your earliest memories of, I guess, visiting Miami, visiting Michael?
Well, just me, my little sister, my young sister, and Michael just going, visiting my auntie every other weekend. Those are my first memories when I was living out here in Miami.
When about was that, Michael?
When she was in Mariana, we would take those drives. And then when he moved to Orlando, I would just go and stay with him. And his mother was like an aunt to me. She was my brother Chiqui's sister-in-law. The same one that Chiqui would tell to go turn on the car. That's the same lady.
Your mother was in Dublin for a while. Yes. When she was in federal, when she was doing her federal time. Yes. On the drug trafficking.
His aunt, which is Chiqui's fiance, and his mother would go to the visits also in Dublin.
Right, so she gets transferred basically, from Federal Institute to Federal Institute.
Right. Yeah, they transfer her, emergency transfer, because of the whole JFK thing or the whole, you know what happened.
She said, we're going to move against Kennedy. Who the hell is Kennedy? The godmother responded, you know, the president's son. We're going to kidnap JFK in New York, and it's $5 million going to the kidnappers.
And holding him for ransom, so she would be released from prison.
That gentleman says that, and they put her in Max again. She's no longer the warden of the prison, and they transfer her immediately to the East Coast.
Is that problem, because you were living out west, was that tougher? I mean,
yes.
In terms of, so visitation was...
Oh, no, wherever my mother was transferred, I went. And I was able to coerce somebody to be my legal guardian. Asked my cousin, I started paying rent at the age of 13. I was a grown boy. So wherever they transferred my mom, I'd be close by. And then when they transferred to Florida, thank God that they had left the Bay Area and we were all living in Florida. So then our bond got closer.
Michael, I mean, is effectively, in terms of day-to-day, is kind of orphaned at this point. I mean, his mom's locked up. His dad's gone. What was that experience like, kind of growing up together?
Well, Michael was still around a lot of family, like he said. He moved around a lot, but it was always close relative or family members. So all I remember when I was young is we moved a lot. It was wartime. We were either chased around by the feds or it was wartime. So I just remember we moved a lot.
Or post-war, and we were still hiding.
Yeah.
So even
going back from California, Florida, all the time.
So I lived in Morgan Hill when they lived in San Francisco.
Right.
And then I knew I was living in this beautiful little farming town, kind of hiding out because I couldn't live in Miami anymore. Because just in case, Rafa was still alive, and Rafa dies. Chiqui dies 92. Rafa was already dead, and then I ended up coming back to Miami because some of the heat was off, and then relocating here. I went to high school, American High, and then they moved back to Florida as well. Stuff dialed down. Chiqui, Ubed, and Dixon get deported, and nobody can visit her. Nobody can, her older children couldn't be around. But her young boys, me, her nephew, we were able to still be around. And, what my role was as a kid was to be that kid. Made sure everybody, the lawyers would be paid, corrupt every corrections officer wherever she was in order to smuggle whatever I needed in for her, take care of payments, things like that. And we were her support system.
How old are you?
From the age of 7 till 20-something.
She's doing federal time, but then there's that transition when Florida comes for her. The state attorney in Miami-Dade, the state cases come.
Yeah, that destroyed her. The whole, transferring to state prison and all that really affected her a lot. If you can tell in the mugshots how beautiful she was in Dublin. Remember how she would dress head to toe, designer wear, salon in the prison, eating fine food, and then they put her in state, and now she's with the, I don't want to say it, but now she's with the common criminals. Now she's with the cutthroats, and now she's not Griselda Blanco. She's have a lot of friends of my mother, and a lot of friends here. A lot of women would have her tattoo on her, Griselda, and they would call her, la abuela, the grandma. And she became the mother, the grandma to all these other convicts.
Now she's facing 3 capital charges.
She was due to get out of federal prison within just a few years. But tonight, Griselda Blanco has been charged with 3 murders.
It goes from doing some federal time for trafficking, cocaine trafficking, to 3 first-degree murder charges. How was that for the family, knowing that she was facing potentially 3 death penalties in the state of Florida?
It was bad.
It's horrible.
We thought she was going to do the electric chair. A lot of people don't understand the pressure that it is to be part of a family, a cartel family, a mob family. It's hard for the children of convicted felons because, believe it or not, they're doing time as well.
People can think what they will about your mother and what she deserved or didn't deserve and what she did or didn't do. But you were a teenager. She was incarcerated since 1986 when you were 7 years old?
Yeah. I always think about
6 years
Tupac
old?
when he said it was hell hugging on my mother from a jail cell. Yeah. My whole youth, my teenage years, everything.
So when this threat is kind of looming over her, how tough is this, Junior, for the family, not knowing whether or not she's going to get the death penalty 3 times over?
Well, as you can imagine, it's a family member, so it was super tough. It was nobody wants to lose a family member,
There's still the question of the lawyers have to be paid. There's still a question of how are we going to beat this? Because she was scheduled to come home 1993. We're visiting her every freaking month, and right when you start looking at that there's light at the end of the tunnel, 20-something years, and she's about to jump out, but then they hit her with it. And we're like, what? My father got killed, and now the only hope of having a parent that she's about to come out, but now they're going to hit it with the electric chair. So she might not ever come out. It was tough.
And then she beats it. You remember where you were? Because that's something the Netflix show gets pretty correct. I mean, she wasn't there watching Rivi through a window or anything like that. Do you remember when you guys found out that Rivi was compromised, he could not be used as a reliable witness, and they're going to plea her out for the murders?
Junior was real young.
I remember. I wasn't that young. I was a senior in high school in San Francisco, and I remember when I got that phone call from a family member, and they told us the good news. Of course,
I was in Colombia, jumping for joy in La Finca. I think we threw a party Because
I think we all threw a party.
Think about it. My mother was my best buddy, and she was incarcerated 24, almost 26 years of my life. And when you're a child, you find yourself praying for their release every day, every night.
But you must have been pissed at Rivi for a minute, though.
She was about to see daylight, literally in months.
So, I mean, she knew that Rivi could put her in the chair.
Forever, yeah. Could have her electric chaired out.
So there's a time period where you are not in the Riverita fan club.
Yeah.
But then when she beats it.
We get the call from Robert and Nathan. Robert Pietierra and Nathan Diamond. Uncle Nathan, I love him, by the way, Nathan. I love you. Great guy. We speak on a daily basis. We all jumped for joy. I think me, Uwid, and Dixon. Uwid was still alive. And we were so happy, bro. We popped champagne from 1985 Dom Perignon.
Did you guys, did you know about the phone sex scandal, and that's what compromised Rivi? That he was having phone sex with at least one, possibly two secretaries at the state attorney's office.
You know what? And
he basically blew up the case.
Right. And people can say what they say about Rivi. And I'm going to tell you something. Like, no matter what, he didn't fully do it. You get it? And maybe it takes me to say it. And my brother sent him commissary to the year 2000. You know, God rest my brother's soul, Uwid. But my brother Uwid sent him commissary, and they had an understanding with him to a certain degree that, all right, you know, it's crazy, but it's true.
So did you, I mean, you got to admit it's pretty funny. I mean, the way the case ended, got destroyed, was pretty fun. I mean, did you appreciate it at the time as kids, like teenager, but like kids, like going like, that, what happened? Like, did you understand what had happened?
Yeah. Of course.
And were you cool with Rivi again?
Yeah, I mean, like, to this day, like, I get it. I guess in a way where we don't have ill will towards him in that way anymore because, you know, he debunked the whole thing, and that's understandable.
So now she's going to do a lot less time on what could have been 3 capital punishment.
I believe she signed for 7 years extra, and due to the 2 years that she had already done on that or something like that, it was going to be less than that.
She gets released when, and where are you guys?
She gets released
2004, I believe.
Yes, 2004, because 8 years later she dies.
Like
my son, he was a baby boy, and I sent him to Colombia with my ex-wife to visit his grandmother. He was like 2 years old, 3 years old. It was a good time because, well, Junior can tell you more. She got to live the lap of luxury again, and she becomes basically my business partner, and we sold our life rights together for multiple motion pictures.
Now
we were talking about a documentary at the time. That was 2008
with your mom, about your mom.
And
but you weren't going to Colombia.
No, never again.
Why not?
Because of seeing too much stuff when I was there, and then my brother gets assassinated. I hide out. I make it back to the States, and just never again loved it. I guess you know how veterans have PTSD. When a lot of veterans, Vietnam, I lived through a time in Medellín that was Vietnam, both during Pablo and then after Pablo's era and the Don B era, and it was very, very violent still.
But Junior, you are going back and forth, right, from the States to Colombia?
That's right.
To spend time with your great aunt? Is that right? It would be great aunt?
Yes.
Yeah, but everybody calls her La Tia, even in the neighborhood.
When did you start going? She's out.
About 2006. I was out there pretty much living with her. Spending family time, quality time, catching up all the years.
How did you get along?
Amazingly. She would spoil me, treated me like Michael or her son, whatever I wanted. Cars, motorcycles, women.
She started throwing the Griselda parties again.
Yeah, and she would love it because she said it reminded her of the old days with the boys. So she wanted me. I would bring the neighborhood up to the house.
Mind you that this is after we closed deals legally, so she had legal money to spend. She made a pool, another steam room, another sauna.
Tell me about her lifestyle. Where was she living? How was she living?
Well, she was living in El Poblado, Medellín. She was living an amazing lifestyle, luxury, as you can imagine.
Was she at all concerned about what had happened to Uber? Was she concerned about old beef? Was she concerned about...
No, not at all. She was... A lot of people don't get it, but my mother started becoming very Christian at the time. You know, I'm not going to tell you that she was a radical evangelist, but yeah, she was Christian, and she had her lifestyle and her morals, and she would tell me... She
moved around freely.
Yeah, freely, and even without escort, without military escort, police escort, or villains. Now and then she might have a couple of people stay in the house, and it wasn't like, you're here to take care of me. It was like, I get it, you're here because you want to take care of me, but I don't need bodyguards and bulletproof cars.
Right.
And I remember there was a time that even Los Ochoas wanted to gift her a bulletproof truck, and she said no. And I told her, Mommy, but if they're offering you a bulletproof truck, my best friend El Maestro wanted to take care of her personally. She said, no, I'm good. Let him come up, hang out, but I'm not gonna be out there every day. And I used to be like, but aren't you scared, Mom? You know? And she used to tell me, scared what? Scared of what? I've seen it all in my life. When I go out, see Jesus. She wasn't scared of dying. 2 days before she got killed, she told me that. I'm not scared to die.
Were you in Colombia in 2012?
Yeah, I was there. I buried her.
What happened on the day that she was killed?
I was in San Francisco at the time. I literally landed the day of her burial. I was on my way already to visit her. So we already had plans on seeing each other, spending family time.
So when was the last time you saw her? How far before?
Maybe like 2-3 months before.
You were in Colombia with her?
Yes.
And planning to...
Spend Christmas, and we were planning on going to the beach, Cartagena, Santa Marta. And unfortunately, like I said, she got murdered, and I landed to bury her.
Griselda Blanco is dead, gunned down by a motorcycle-riding assassin as she stepped out of a butcher shop in Medellín, Colombia.
And what do you guys know about that day? Was it a normal day for her? Was she in her doing her usual routine, whatever that may have been? What can you tell me?
Well, she had the habit of going to that same butcher shop to get meat for a lot of the local ladies of the night and mothers that were not doing well financially. You know, she'd spend a little $300, $400, $500 or un millón o algo, right, in carne and good meat for the people del Barrio Antioquia or for her friends. So that's why my mother had so much love in her Barrio Antioquia, and that's really the reason why they call her the Godmother. And I think you failed to mention that in the Cocaine Cowboys 1, 2, 3 and Reloaded, or 1, 2 and Reloaded, but I'll mention it now. My mother was godmother to over 200 children in the same neighborhood and in the surrounding areas.
Yeah.
That's why they call her.
She would tell me stories of her Uber and Chiqui would go down there in truckloads and give out from money to clothes to food, everything in Barrio Antioquia.
And she was basically still doing that.
Yeah, she still had that habit. Yeah.
Still.
Sometimes you shouldn't leave your castle, I guess. You know, and she lived in the most secure place that you could live. My brother Chiqui bought that house. You know, you weren't getting in there.
Right.
And if you did, you know, it's a gated community. We owned these houses at the very beginning that they were developed by the Ochoas, by the Escobars, and by Chiqui Blanco.
Yep.
So everybody knows us in that compound, and you're not passing that gate.
So that's where she basically moved to, was to a house owned by Osvaldo.
That's where she lived.
Well, actually, I owned it. Chiqui gave it to me, and then the federal government seized it from me while I was incarcerated.
But it was basically a family home that she
family
moved back
home.
into.
It was
Yeah,
beautiful.
for sure.
We have pictures of it in my book.
Yeah, beautiful. Marble floors imported from Italy, gold on the floor. Yeah, everything you can want, pool, steam rooms, maids, name it, the house had it.
Conventional wisdom was, of course, that, you know, Griselda Blanco gets released from prison in Florida. She's deported to Colombia, and something was going to catch up with her, right? Old beef, something was going to catch up with her. But she lived peacefully and quietly for almost 8 years down there. What happened to her? Why was she murdered? Who did it and why?
I don't know if we can talk about that.
Yeah, that's I think that's for us to know.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to say too much. I think that's for us to know, and for the people that know that we know or think that we don't know, for them to live with that shit in the back of their mind every day.
Can I ask, though, and you could say no or don't answer, but was it old beef?
Yes and no. Yes.
I mean, something's from the before times, if you will, like before she was locked up and from the old days.
Yes and no.
I'm not going to talk about that.
Yeah, I don't think we should elaborate on it too much.
All right. Tell me about returning to Colombia after she was killed.
It's one of the saddest days of my life, as you can imagine. You got something else in your mind. You're planning a family vacation. You're planning great time, fun times, and you go straight to a funeral. I don't know. It's very emotional for me. I can't really talk about it too much, you know.
Can you tell me about anything about the funeral?
I can tell you that the whole neighborhood was there. I can tell you people loved her. A lot of people were there crying. They really loved her. She was family to a lot of people. Not just family members, but to a lot of other people.
Griselda never forgot where she came from.
Exactly.
And to this day, she will always be la madrina del barrio Antioquia.
Yeah.
You were not there.
I was online.
He was on the phone with me.
I was on the phone, and while they were with the computers, I think I was so fucked up that day that I didn't even want to see the webcam. I didn't want to see the link, and it was just so crazy. But I did with my aunt, with him, and with my friends that I grew up with. We did coordinate everything, los mariachis, you know, the fact that we didn't want journalists disrespecting the mass. Knowing who was going to carry the casket, knowing that he was protected, knowing that my brother was protected, knowing that certain people were there that they would go out in a blaze of glory for the family.
Who carried the casket?
Myself and a couple of really close family friends from the neighborhood. And a couple other cousins. Yeah. A couple other family members.
And a couple members, a member or two of our crew, of my crew, La Clica on the ground.
Yeah.
And why didn't you go, Michael?
Because I have asylum in this country and I can't legally go back to Colombia. Plus, I had my children here. My boys were young, and I guess I've seen too much. That I understand somewhat.
And it's a big risk to go back. Huge risk.
And I understand you said earlier you didn't want to go back to Colombia.
Yeah,
your kids went to, you sent your son to visit your mother, but
briefly, just so they can meet their grandmother. She could hug her because she saw the kid when she wasn't visiting, and then he was a little older, and I just wanted her to see her grandkid and hug him and kiss him and know that, you know, that I was good, that I was doing my part here as a regular person and becoming a father as well. I wanted her to show her that I was done with my criminal life and that we could really make a living off this movie and documentary and doing legal consultation on our last name for all these projects in Hollywood. I wanted to show her that I had an exit strategy for the family.
Did you regret not having made one last trip to Colombia in the years before?
That's a good question. Really, did I regret? Of course I regretted it. You know, it comes to a certain point in time that you know, did I abandon my mother? But I didn't.
You have been an important part of Michael's life when he was dealing with his mother's incarceration, and it's not any kind of way for a kid to grow up without a father, really without a mother. How hard was it for you? Because Michael struggled for a minute. I think he's pretty candid about that.
Right.
What was that like for you?
I think we were on the same page. We're growing up.
Yeah.
Ex-mafia royalty.
Like I said, we moved around a lot, so we kind of experienced the same things. moved around different relatives, different people taking care of us.
And living a normal lifestyle, with a lot of people don't really understand that us, being the second generation, I guess we had to adapt ourselves to being normal kids.
It was normal for us because that's all we knew.
Yeah, that's exactly. But then we were normalized in both things. It was normal to have a cartel family and know that maybe you did some crime in the past, maybe you might be doing some crime, but I still got to be a kid here to support you and go to school and be a normal kid.
You're out of it. You're on the other end of that craziness. But
yeah,
but you went right through the eye of the storm to come out the other end. So talk about that journey, your journey here today as a pretty chill, normal contributing member, tax-paying member of society.
Yeah. I went through my thing. I fucked up in life, I had criminal charges as well. Like you say, come out at the other end, and then what are you going to do? You're going to repeat we're on a boat. You're going to keep on being a criminal your whole life. I mean, I was a criminal until I was 33 years of age, and then you fuck up your life. You waste all your money on fucking lawyers, on great lawyers, by the way. Thank you to all my attorneys. I love you. All of you guys, even the ones I have now. And then you got to make a choice. And I guess my boys were born already. And it comes to the moment that you have to realize, what am I going to do with the rest of my fucking life? And like I speak about it in my book a lot, philosophically speaking. Like I said, I apologize to all the victims of the cocaine cowboy wars and the crack epidemics that my mother might have been responsible for, even though she wasn't fully responsible. I won't sit here and say my mother was a piece of what or this and that. And some might call my mother a monster. She might, they might say she was an evil woman. Don't say that to my face because we will have issues. And comes a point in your life that once you lose everything, like I say in the book, once you lose everything in exchange for your family members, you're looking at a gravesite. I guess that day you got to analyze, do you want to be there? When I was younger, I lived through a lot of resentment, and it was a constant battle to understand why you were abandoned, why you had to go from home and home, why you weren't filthy rich anymore, why were you going through tough times, and who could you cry to? I had nobody to run and cry to.
And does that inform, or did that later inform when you reached that crossroads in your life and you had to make, you both said you had to make that decision. I mean, did you look at your children and say, am I going to be my mother?
Yeah.
Or worse, my father?
No. Oh,
I mean, I just mean in terms of
my father was a good man.
But I meant not being there, gone. That's what I meant.
That was my fear. So I decided to make that choice. I went through what a lot of the kids went through in the 1990s, believe it or not, growing up in California, growing up in Miami, in California it was a 3 strikes, you're out. And all my friends, daddy wasn't home, and the mothers would be my legal guardians. And I speak about that in my book, and I'm grateful for the Bay Area. I'm grateful. Even when I lived in LA, I lived with a good family. In the Bay Area, I lived with outstanding people. In Santa Clara County, in Morgan Hill, California, I lived with the best, humble people you could live with. And there was a point in time that I speak about it in my book. My stepfather was a minister, and this man taught me the word of God. And my mother loved that every day this man would sit me down, say grace. And me and Junior buried him 2 years ago. Yeah, Pastor Danny Everhart.
Your stepfather. What does that mean? What is that?
He was basically my legal guardian. He became my father figure, and he would take me to visit my mother.
From how old, roughly?
From 11, 12 till 17, 16. He was always a factor, and he taught me the word of God, and my mother was very appreciative to him for that. A white American man became my stepfather, and I'm grateful for that. As an ex-criminal, you're going to say, how the hell are you going to provide for your family?
Right.
Because all I know is crime. And I guess that's when we had to make a choice.
Make choices.
Yeah.
You would
thank God for this. And thank God for you guys, too, because Cocaine Cowboys really, really helped me a lot.
How so?
I'm grateful for that. Because the best thing I ever did was not put a cease and desist on you guys. Because even though my mother wanted to, and Nathan said it, do it, Michael. I said, are you crazy? These people are about to show the world what I've been trying to tell them for years, that a woman created the modern day cocaine drug trade as we know it. And they're going to do it. Now, if I can't get a piece of a pie, well, we're going to figure out how to eat from this shit later. And we figured it out. And now we eating.
Check out Cali Gold Custom.
Ace Deuce will bust you loose.